Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another Spincast. Today, we are back on the topic of collegiate esports. We are joined today by Ben CIGELSKE. He is the vice president at Auburn University for the esports program there, and he's also pursuing a computer engineering degree in his coursework. So, without further ado, Ben, go ahead, introduce yourself. Tell us where your passions in esports began and kind of how that developed and grew into becoming the VP of the esports program at Auburn, where you currently are.
Sure. I'm, like you said, my name is Ben. I'm a junior at Auburn University pursuing a degree in computer engineering. And my esports career began a long time ago in League of Legends. Back when I think it was freshman year of high school. I've been playing games all my life since I was a toddler, pretty much. Started with Halo, all that stuff. And then I got into League when I had a German exchange student come over. He's like, hey, you should try this game. I'm like, I don't know. I don't really like MOBAs. So I tried it. And I really enjoyed it. And then I joined a competitive league known as House Party 5v5, I believe, and they had Captain Flowers, if anyone knows that. Mm-hmm. He's currently a caster for the LCS. He casted some of the games there. And I wasn't too good at it, but I enjoyed it. So I just played on a couple teams there, and then kind of dropped esports for a little bit until I think roughly September of freshman year here at Auburn. Overwatch came out recently at the time. And I was like, man, I really enjoyed this game. And I was actually, unlike League, pretty good at it. So I decided that I wanted to start a team at Auburn because the league called TESPA had been getting some traction recently. Mm-hmm. And then there's also the club I'm part of right now, Auburn Esports, was at the time looking for an Overwatch team. Like, hey, we need to get some people together and make a team. So I was like, all right, I'll do it. And so started like that. And then eventually, I think after a month, I was promoted to the Overwatch game representative for the organization. And I stayed on that track for about 2 years, roughly. And then just back in this year of May, I was elected the vice president of the esports organization. Awesome.
Love to see those kind of long-term success stories and taking your passions and, applying it constructively, especially at the university level. So my first question about Auburn specifically is, what are all the games and programs do y'all have? What kind of competition do you compete in for those interested? And also for the teams themselves, is there a dedicated practice area? Is it mostly online? Or do y'all have some sort of computer lab or arena?
Mm-hmm. Sure. Okay, so the teams, we have a good amount in the major games. We got CSGO. I think we have just an A team there. And then for Overwatch, we have an A team and a B team. So the way we do our teams is A team will be the top ranked players, and then B team will be lower ranked. And then we also have Rainbow Six, Rocket League, and we actually have a Beat Saber team that I did not know about until last month. And they've been competing in various tournaments, just community organized. Mm-hmm. And we also have, I think we have 3 League of Legends teams. And at the moment, we do not have a practice space. We have been working towards that for about, I'd say, a year now. And due to the ongoing crisis and pandemic, a lot of the stuff we have been working on has been put on hold at the moment. For example, we were working towards becoming a club sport and going to the athletic department, getting all that settled. But they closed all their applications right around when the crisis started. So we have been put on hold until, I think, next month when school resumes. So, and the same with the practice room. We have all that currently put on hold, unfortunately.
Yeah, no, that's the reality we live in. Right? Unfortunately, it's something that we wish never happened, but it happened.
Yeah,
it can be like that sometimes. With what we have now, right? So, Fortunate there. Kind of diving into it, you hinted at it, but real quickly, you are a student-led organization as of now. Just a club that's student-led, not a club sport quite yet.
Yes, not yet. So we weren't even officially a university or recognized organization until about a year ago, because every club has to go through a year to prove they're going to stick around and all that stuff. Yeah. So we actually became university recognized about, I think, 2019 October.
Awesome.
And so that you need to be that before you can start pursuing club sport applications.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So we hit that milestone a while ago, but ever since then,
now you have to wait for the bureaucratic and the tedious, legislative practice or process before that gets approved. Totally understandable there. It kind of goes to my next question is, what kind of support do you hope to gain from the university? Obviously when things normalize and you're able to, finish the application process.
Mm-hmm.
What kind of support do you hope to get? And then what will that enable for, Auburn Esports as it continues to grow?
Mm-hmm, sure. So through the athletic department, there is a way that we can apply for to get our own practice space if we do get into the club sport application process. So once we finish that process, we're going to just throw it out there, be like, hey, would it be any way possible for us to potentially get a practice space? And it doesn't even have to be that big. We just have a small room with I think 12 computers roughly, because our Overwatch team is I think 12 players. If you wanted to do scrims against each other, that would be the max that we would need. Mm-hmm. So once the club sports application process is finished up, we will kindly ask them if we can acquire said space, and they haven't really pushed back against any of anything we've done so far, which is nice. So I was gonna mention something about hey, if you could just be a little more relaxed on this, but they haven't really been very aggressive about denying anything that we put out. They've just been kind of hands-on, or not hands-on,
Mm-hmm.
sorry. They just let us be hands-on.
Yeah.
And our advisor, Michael Lamb, he kind of lets us do as long as it's within the university guidelines, he lets us do pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
So we just tend to those rails.
Yeah, kind of just testing the water, seeing where y'all end up on your own accord, and then seeing what that support looks like from there. Absolutely. It's usually a pretty good practice from a university or a business or anything, seeing the growth that you can maintain yourself and then go from there. Kind of leading into my next question is, I hadn't thought of mine, I seem to have forgotten it. For collegiate esports, right? There's a lot of competitions out there, but in this entire podcast series, it's become very evident that there's also a lot of overlapping competitions as well. So kind of speak to if you've had an experience where, maybe two leagues of the same play date or the same weekend on the finals, and maybe, if you want to see more structure from, the competitions that you can plan, like TESPA or NACE or, CRL or CLOL or any of those competitions for those games in particular that you like to see change or improve on.
Yeah, okay, so for TESPA, that's the one I've had the most experience with since I was at Overwatch Game Rep. Thankfully, a lot of times nothing would really overlap too much, and this isn't really on TESPA themselves, but sometimes certain universities would do tournaments of playoff during TESPA. I know we had an issue with that. I think it was last year when we wanted to go to Voland, University of Tennessee. We wanted to go to their LAN, but then we also didn't want to miss our TESPA playoff game. Yeah. So we had to pick one or the other. I think we ended up going to the LAN because we just wanted to get the LAN experience and wanted to say, hey, we went there as a team and represent our university. And so in regards to the other games, I think most of them have been pretty good about scheduling. I know CSGO had a couple of issues just with the sign-up process, just getting into the league itself. But other than that, is just from my perspective, from outside area, from non-Overwatch, seems like everything's been pretty good. Yeah, pretty good structured. I would say for Smash, I know they're having a hard time, especially during the pandemic, because online Smash is not the greatest at the moment.
Yeah.
So and you don't want to avoid the IRL interactions. Yeah. So they've been having some issues, but that's
everything else has a much better platform to play online. Rocket League, it's very easy to throw a custom lobby together and get the right people in there and play, and then produce it as well. So kind of going back to your team or other teams within the Auburn esports programs across the different titles. What is a typical practice day out there, right? Because a lot of high school students watch these podcasts and they're interested to know what is a typical day in a practice and game days and all of that look like for esports players. So take us through what that day looks like and how practices are kind of run and your goals that you guys set for yourselves as you continue to improve.
Sure. So I'm going to give it from the perspective of the Overwatch team, since I was a player on the team for about 2 years while I was the game representative. So in a daily week, we would try to do scrimmages about 3 times a week, and those would go for 2-hour blocks. And we would usually try to stagger them so we wouldn't have 2 scrims in a row for each day. And then we would also usually, if any player had an exam or whatever, a quiz they needed to really study for, we would give them some time and schedule a scrim for a different day than usual. But usually we would stick to a set like scrim schedule. I think ours was Thursday, Tuesday, and I think we would do Friday sometimes if people had those exams, but then we usually try to stick to Saturdays.
Mm-hmm.
And our match days, at least for TESPA, were on Sundays at 7 p.m. And up to that day, we wouldn't do any like warm up or anything because we know people need to study for exams. A big part, at least for Overwatch, was making sure you keep your GPA up and you don't flunk out of school.
Yeah,
we didn't want anyone to sacrifice any time just to like play on their our Overwatch team because we don't have too many benefits to offer right now. So we don't want to have it and need anyone to sacrifice anything.
absolutely.
So Sundays we had our matches, and they weren't streamed, unfortunately. So we didn't have to like worry about any like broadcast setup or anything. We would just get in there, play them, and then we just report the matches to TESPA, and then that would be that. And then we would just rinse and repeat. And sometimes if the team decided like we all had a bunch of free time, we would also reserve a room in our student center. Then we would set up like a VOD review, and we'd all be in person, get some dinner together. We usually try to keep our scrimmages. I don't think I mentioned this. We try to keep our scrims and like just everything at like 7 or later, just to avoid, and like if anyone has a class or a lab or something,
a late class, yeah,
we don't want that to conflict with anything. So we try to keep those late, and same with the VOD reviews. So
absolutely, yeah, sounds like a great practice schedule. Really a lot of room to grow within that practice schedule. Really easy to do that when you have a dedicated time to do so. Kind of moving on to more broad topics surrounding collegiate esports is, I know we talked a little bit about it before the podcast started, is, the NCAA is like knocking on the door in collegiate esports, and they're testing the waters and trying to see where they could fit in, because obviously, esports is growing incredibly quickly and it's massive at the pro level already. And we all know that NCAA, wants to get in there to get their share of the market space. So what are your viewpoints on NCAA involvement? What do you think they could help with, or what could they maybe not help with at all and hurt? Just give us your viewpoints and maybe what you would like to see come out of that potential entrance to the market from the NCAA.
Sure. So I think the NCAA, if done correctly for esports, I think they could provide a good rule set for all the leagues to follow. Because I know pretty sure like basketball and all that stuff, they have rules for professional players, like going back to collegiate level, I believe. And we had an experience with that recently, and we made it to the Overwatch like TESPA playoffs this year again. And we went against the number one team who had an professional player from the Overwatch league playing on their team, and their coach is also a professional player, which, I'm not trying to be salty or anything, but having set rules like that would definitely help in regards to just competitive integrity, I guess. Because whenever you're competing at a collegiate level, it does make you feel a little down when you have to go against professional players that have played like on stream and stuff. So, and then there's also a mental game, because you can, in your mind, you're just like, well, they played in this league and they're done this good, and then you just kind of lose the game before you even start. So having a rule set like that, I think, would be beneficial. What I could see being not beneficial is just basically the opposite. If they just get a bunch of unexperienced people who know nothing about esports to go in and make a rule set and try to apply the same rules that they would for like physical sports that they would to esports, because you do not need the same rule sets for both. They do not need to overlap, in my opinion, because it's just a different environment entirely.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I think there's a lot we can learn from traditional sports in that model, and kind of their approach to it with the structure they have. But at the same time, esports is very different, right? Football, you can only play one game a week. Anything more than that, you're just simply too tired, right? Your body can't handle it. But in esports, you can play in a tournament on a nightly basis, right? There's so many more competitions that are easy to enter, very low cost, and most of them are free as well. So kind of mitigating and, trying to control that from an outside perspective would be very difficult. And I know there'd be pushback from the community as well. So difficult waters to traverse for sure. But I was like getting that perspective because, it is probably going to happen at some point, at some level. Who knows what that looks like? But, being the premier kind of structure for traditional sports, esports is that close relative. So pretty easy translation there. Before we run out of time, I have one last question for you, is looking towards the growth of collegiate esports, right? Obviously, it's growing incredibly quickly. It's becoming more mainstream, but, obviously, it's not near as mainstream as, football or basketball, right? Where that's all over
Mm.
ESPN and ABC and NBC. So what steps do you think need to be taken, or what changes or improvisations need to happen to make esports at the collegiate level at that same level as football or basketball?
Sure. So again, I'm going to be speaking from just the Overwatch perspective. So on Overwatch League, what they've been doing recently is they've been doing a good job of like explaining to just people who have never played the game before, and just putting up graphics and stuff, just explaining how the map works, how many players. They do this before every time. They just put a graphic. It's like, for escort, you gotta push the payload, and then people who have never played the game before are like, okay, so this team has to do this and push it this far, and if they make it this far, they get a set amount of points. And it simplifies it very much, just so it's easy to understand. You just quickly glance at it, and you're like, oh, okay. So I think if other esports could do similar things, just make it very easy just to casually observe it, I think that would help a lot in making it, explode. And yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that's one of the biggest burdens, is getting that mainstream viewership, right? People that aren't invested in the scene, or they're interested, but they've never played that much, or maybe they saw their kids play or their friends play, but they don't really understand, especially for games like Overwatch and League, where so many things are happening so rapidly, and it's very, different, right? I don't mean that in a negative way, it just is, right? Like games like Rocket League are very easy to follow because hit the ball on the goal, right?
Yeah, it's just like cars or soccer.
Exactly, car soccer. But like the high tier games in League of Legends and CSGO and Overwatch, those are a lot harder to follow and kind of understand what the goals are, the process is to get to achieve those goals. So absolutely. But unfortunately, we are out of time. We had a great discussion, Ben. Really glad you could come on the show. Real quick, go ahead and plug yourself, plug Auburn University. Tell us where we can find y'all on social media. If we want to keep up to date as y'all continue to compete and achieve that long-term success.
Sure. Okay. So on Twitter, you can find us at Gaming Auburn, and on there we also have our Discord link. So if you ever want to join our Discord, you can. And on our Twitch, we go twitch.tv/Auburn Esports. I myself have been recently trying to stream some scrims and test out some graphics that I created. So it's still a little prototypey, but whenever the fall semester does begin, I'm going to start trying to stream more.
Awesome.
Of our matches. And then for me, you can follow me at Twitter at Twitch, or not Twitch. At Twitter, you can follow me at Code Doritos.
Awesome. Sounds good. Everyone keep an eye out for them. Auburn, obviously being a massive D1 school, some exciting things from them for sure is on the horizon. To all our viewers and listeners, thank you so much for staying the entire time. Stay healthy and stay happy in the current pandemic. Make sure you're taking care of yourself and your loved ones. And ultimately, stay plugged in.